Now, Steve Bannon is a demagogue extraordinaire, and he was the person who was running Breitbart, basically a trash publication online, and proudly the home of the alt-right, who are generally white nationalists. Some of them are now claiming, now look, we're all extreme right-wingers, but some of us don't hate everybody. Some of us just hate specific religions. Others hate everybody who isn't Christian. So there's a wide range. Don't say we're all white nationalists. That hurts our feelings. Okay, this is the guy who ran that website, then was the chief strategist for Trump during the campaign. Gee, I wonder why he talked about bigotry all the time and the Muslim ban, which they wound up doing. Now he's a chief strategist inside the White House, but that wasn't enough. He's got to be closer to power. And remember, Trump is very, very unintelligent. And that is why a lot of the insiders tell you, and they're not against Trump, they just tell you how he operates. They say, look, the guy who's in the room with him last wins. So he's got ADD, he can barely pay attention. So a lot of ideas will be discussed. He'll be, twiddling and, well, actually literally tweeting. And then if Bannon's in the room last and he's like, okay, now we're doing the Muslim ban. He's like, okay, what executive order do I sign, Steve? So what's going on with Steve Bannon? Let's check in at Mediaite here. Trump enacted a new executive order on Saturday, which placed White House chief strategist and former Breitbart editor Steve Bannon on the National Security Council. He has no experience in national security. He ran a media magazine. I don't say that derisively. God bless new media. But National Security Council? Really? It's because Steve Bannon told him to do it. He's like, oh, you don't need any experience? Okay, sure, I'll sign that executive order. Hey, but President Trump, didn't you criticize Obama for all the executive orders he signed? Whatever, Steve, what do I do? There's not much in that empty little orange head of his. So, there's more. If you're a guy who's looking to grab a lot of power inside the White House, and you've got a president with not too many thoughts in his head, you want him listening to you, you want to be closer to power, you want to be on the council, but you also want to lessen the power of the others. So here comes the second part. The action also states that the Director of National Intelligence and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff will now only attend meetings where, quote, issues pertaining to their responsibilities and expertise are to be discussed. The Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is the guy in charge of all of the armed forces. The heads of the Army, the Navy, the Marines, the Air Force report into him. So if you're discussing matters that they would normally attend in a meeting, now some of those meetings are going to be ruled out for them. No, you're not to attend those small council meetings anymore. Well, who gets to make that decision? You guessed it, Steve Bannon. Now, if somebody did this here, I would see it from a mile away. I'd be like, oh, really? You would like me to only listen to you, but not anyone else? Boy, that is really clever. Now, for people of reasonable intelligence, it's very transparent. Again, Trump speaks at a third-grade vocabulary. It's not an accident, and it's certainly not some sort of brilliant strategy, because that's about the level of his intellect. So Susan Rice, who was the national security advisor for Obama, can't believe her eyes. So she writes online, this is stone cold crazy. After a week of crazy, who needs military advice or intelligence to make policy on ISIL, Syria, Afghanistan, and North Korea? I mean, previously unimaginable. Like, I don't need my National Security Council, unless Steve Bannon is running it. I don't need my Department of Defense, etc. Mental. Okay, Susan Rice continues. Pence may chair National Security Council meetings in lieu of POTUS. Never happened under Obama. UN ambassadors sidelined from the cabinet and sub-cabinet level meetings. Ambassadors, you are now sidelined. And I told you, Trump doesn't even want to be president. He just wants to be famous. So he's like, who can I hand off this responsibility to? I don't like responsibility. Okay, Steve, you run everything. Oh, National Security Council meeting. Do I have to go, Daddy? No, that's okay. Mike Pence will sit in for you and actually be president for a while. And he doesn't even mind. One more from Rice. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs and Director of National Intelligence treated as afterthoughts in cabinet-level principals meetings. And where's the CIA? Cut out of everything. Wait, I thought I saw Trump at the CIA telling them that nobody respects them more than Trump. Unless, of course, they're making decisions, in which case you've been sidelined. Now, Raw Story has some more details on this. Steve Bannon, senior advisor to President Donald Trump, personally overruled a decision by the Department of Homeland Security not to include green card holders in the president's temporary ban on travel from Muslim countries. Now, that has since been overturned. But when they were making the decision in the beginning, the Department of Homeland Security says, no, green card holders have almost all of the rights of citizens. We're not talking about vetting anymore. They already live in this country. They have legal rights. These are permanent residents. And Bannon's like, I don't care. Are they Muslim? Then I'm banning them. And I'm now sitting on the National Security Council. I can do whatever I want. Amazing. Okay. Documents obtained by CNN showed that the Department of Homeland Security initially determined that, quote, lawful permanent residents are not included and may continue to travel to the U.S. But Bannon personally intervened to counter the guidance from Department of Homeland Security lawyers. You don't need lawyers if you're planning on breaking the law. In fact, they're kind of annoying. Now, finally from CNN, the White House overruled that guidance overnight, according to officials familiar with the rollout. That order came from the president's inner circle, led by Stephen Miller and Steve Bannon. And their decision held that on a case-by-case basis, Department of Homeland Security could allow green card holders to enter the U.S. So, in other words, in the beginning, they wanted to even ban permanent residents. Finally, after enormous blowback on that provision in particular, they have apparently reversed it. But since they're not keen on following the law, you never know when they might bring that part of the ban back as well. And we certainly know which way Steve Bannon is heading. Now, when they asked Sean Spicer at the press briefing at the White House about whether all these things are true, that some of these players have been, their roles have been diminished, some have been sidelined, and that Steve Bannon is actually on the National Security Council, which seems unbelievable. And he said, no, don't worry. It's, quote, utter nonsense. Oh, well, that sounds reassuring, and that's the White House press secretary. Later, when pressed on details of what he means by that, he said, well, Steve's not going to be in every meeting. Oh, are they not merciful? Steve Bannon will not run the entire country. He won't be at every meeting. But yes, in other words, he is now on the National Security Council with no qualifications whatsoever. And so all that talk about, oh, it's overblown, not true. He is in that seat of power. And it's not an accident that you're seeing the outrageous and extreme actions that you're seeing from the president in the first week, because he's listening to the guys like Steve Bannon. We already hired one investigative reporting team thanks to you guys. Let's hire the second right now. Go to tytnetwork.com/go.